There is a divine law that governs all abundance, and this law is as precise as the rising of the sun. Money is not elusive, nor is it cruel. It is an obedient servant, awaiting the command of the soul that knows its own authority. The world teaches that supply is limited, that effort must be strained, and that only through struggle can one attain prosperity. But in truth, there exists one command, one simple decree of the Spirit, that can turn the tide of fortune and bring into manifestation a flood of wealth within the span of mere hours. We live not in a universe of lack, but in a universe of overflowing substance. Every dollar, every coin, every stream of prosperity is already prepared, already moving toward those who dare to speak with conviction. Just as the seed contains within itself the mighty tree, so does a single word contain within itself the power to draw riches from the unseen to the seen. The spoken word, clothed in unwavering faith, is the bridge from invisible supply to tangible manifestation. When a soul awakens to its authority, it ceases to beg, it ceases to wait, it ceases to question, it commands. And in commanding, it calls forth the hidden treasures of the universe. The mind that knows its dominion over circumstance no longer trembles before bills, debts, or obligations. Instead, it speaks the word, and money answers. It decrees the law, and substance rushes to obey. This is not imagination, nor wishful thinking. It is law immutable, eternal, and immediate when touched by the certainty of faith. One command, spoken with the fire of belief, has the power to unlock the vaults of heaven and pour forth streams of prosperity that seem miraculous to the doubter, but natural to the knower. Time, as we understand it, bends before the authority of spirit. 12 hours is but a moment in eternity, yet it is enough for the unseen to crystallize into form. In those hours, opportunities appear, debts dissolve, channels open, and provision arrives. Money does not respond to fear, nor to desperation. It is deaf to anxiety, but it is quick, sharp, and eager to obey the words spoken in alignment with divine order. The individual who speaks this command does not plead or hope, they declare. And in declaring, they set the law into motion. They become a magnetized center through which abundance flows swiftly, effortlessly, and with precision. It is not toil that brings sudden wealth, but alignment. It is not struggle that brings huge money in a matter of hours, but certainty. The one who knows this command stands calm, serene, and confident, for they understand that the universe rushes to fulfill their decree the moment it is released. This is the secret of sudden supplies, the recognition that you are the voice through which infinite substance takes direction. With a single command, wealth hastens its steps, eager to clothe itself in form at your bidding. The spoken word carries within it a force that most people never fully recognize. Every word uttered is not a casual vibration in the air. It is a command sent into the invisible substance of life, shaping circumstances and drawing into form the things it names. Words are clothed with energy, and energy is never lost. Once spoken, a word sets into motion currents of power that begin at once to arrange conditions, people, and opportunities in harmony with its meaning. To speak is to decree, and to decree is to rule over the substance that makes up the seen and the unseen. The ancient wisdom has long declared that in the beginning was the Word, and from the Word all things were made. This is not a poetic statement. It is a literal key to the mystery of manifestation. Thought alone is powerful, yet thought unspoken remains like a seed unplanted. It contains the potential of the oak, but until it is placed in the soil, it cannot sprout. Words are the planting of thought into the soil of universal substance. The moment you speak, you set the invisible into action. Silent belief has strength, but spoken belief becomes law. Every affirmation, every declaration, whether conscious or unconscious, is a seed sown into the field of life. Many wonder why they see struggle, why they encounter lack, why disappointment circles them again and again. They forget that their own words have been commanding those very conditions. The tongue is a creative instrument. To speak of poverty, fear, or limitation is to invite it closer. To declare wealth, joy, and certainty is to summon them swiftly. There is no neutrality in speech, for every word tilts the balance either toward abundance or toward lack. The individual who understands the power of the spoken word becomes a careful guardian of their speech. They cease to speak idle words, words of complaint, words of fear, words of doubt. Instead, they measure their speech with precision, knowing that each utterance is a brushstroke on the canvas of their reality. They understand that speech is not only expression but creation. They speak, and in speaking they form. They command, and in commanding they establish. Words carry vibration, and vibration draws to itself like vibration. When the word is spoken with conviction, it becomes magnetic. A word charged with faith carries far more weight than 1,000 words spoken carelessly. It is not the length of speech, but the intensity of belief that clothes a word with power. A short command, spoken with absolute certainty, can pierce the invisible and bring forth results in astonishing speed. Faith acts as the fire, and the word is the spark carried on that flame. Together they ignite the substance of life into form. Money itself is sensitive to the word, though many treat it as an elusive object. Money is in truth a vibration, a current of energy that responds swiftly to the commands of speech. When you declare that money flows freely, doors of opportunity open, channels are cleared, and the very atmosphere around you is charged with provision. When you complain that money is scarce, you are declaring scarcity, and the law obeys by closing doors, blocking channels, and arranging lack. Money follows words as faithfully as a shadow follows form. The one who learns to direct words with intention understands that speech is never casual. Words spoken lightly still bear fruit, though often the fruit is bitter. To say, "I cannot afford, I never have enough, money is hard to come by," is to set decrees that the universe must honor. Words are commands. They do not question the speaker's awareness. They simply bring forth that which is spoken, with impartial obedience. The universe is literal. It does not interpret jokes, sarcasm, or exaggeration. It only hears and it only creates. To harness this power, one must speak with the authority of one who knows. Authority does not plead, nor does it ask timidly. It declares. A declaration leaves no room for wavering. It is firm, steady, absolute. When a word is spoken with such force, the invisible immediately sets to work. Conditions shift, unseen help arrives, channels open, and substance hastens into form. Those who understand this law do not waste time wondering how it will happen. They speak, and they trust the law to arrange the details. The tongue has been called a sword, and rightly so, for it cuts through appearances. Appearances may show lack, but a word can slice through that illusion and establish supply. Appearances may show sickness, but a word can declare wholeness and dissolve the illusion. Appearances may whisper failure, but a word can roar success and scatter defeat. The sword of the word is not wielded in violence but in calm authority. It is not the shout that carries power, but the certainty behind the utterance. A quiet word spoken in faith can overturn the loudest fear. The atmosphere around each individual is filled with words they have spoken in the past. These words hang like seeds waiting to sprout, and many are living today in the harvest of yesterday's speech. If one desires a different harvest, they must sow different words. To speak abundance today is to plant abundance tomorrow. To declare prosperity now is to arrange for prosperity in the hours ahead. Words set cycles into motion, and cycles unfailingly return their fruit. When the spoken word is combined with imagination and faith, its power becomes multiplied. To see inwardly while declaring outwardly is to double the decree. The word sends the command, the image gives it form, and faith gives it substance. Together they weave reality as swiftly as lightning splits the sky. The individual who uses all three with precision becomes a master of manifestation. And money, health, success, and joy all respond to their decree with remarkable speed. The law of the spoken word is not bound by time. It does not recognize hours, days, or weeks. It only responds to the command. A word spoken in true faith can compress time, bringing into hours what others struggle for in years. This is why sudden wealth, sudden opportunity, sudden change are not miracles. They are simply the swift obedience of substance to the power of a word spoken with authority. Faith is the activator of supply, because without faith the spoken word is hollow, empty, and powerless. Faith is the invisible current that electrifies the command and compels the universe to obey. It is not mere hope, not wishful thinking, not a timid desire that trembles at appearances. Faith is a fierce knowing, a quiet certainty that what is spoken must be established because the law cannot fail. Faith is the bridge between the unseen and the seen, the hidden and the revealed, the eternal and the temporal. When faith is present, time shortens, channels widen, and the impossible dissolves before the authority of spirit. There are those who speak words yet see no result. Not because the law has failed, but because the words were spoken without the breath of faith. Words without faith are like arrows without a bow. They fall before reaching their mark. Faith is the force that sends them flying, piercing through every obstacle and striking the center of manifestation. The universe is impartial, but it is not moved by doubt. It does not respond to hesitation, it does not bend to uncertainty. Only faith, unshaken and resolute, activates the law so that supply appears where none seemed possible. Faith is the assurance that substance is ever present, regardless of outer appearances. To the eye there may be emptiness, but to faith there is only fullness awaiting recognition. To the ear, there may be silence, but to faith there is the music of supply drawing near. Faith looks beyond the visible and sees with the vision of spirit. It calls that which is not as though it already is, and because it calls with certainty, it appears. When one declares wealth with wavering, they repel it. When one declares wealth with faith, they magnetize it. Faith is the magnet, drawing to itself the riches that already exist in the invisible storehouse of the universe. Faith does not consult with reason, for reason is bound to the visible. Reason calculates, measures, and limits. Faith transcends limitation, knowing that supply is infinite and unbound. Reason asks, how can this be done in 12 hours? Faith replies, it is already done. Reason counts the coins in the purse. But faith declares that substance cannot be counted, for it is endless and ever replenishing. The one who leans on reason remains in the cycle of lack, but the one who clings to faith walks into sudden abundance. Faith does not strain, for strain is a sign of fear. Faith is effortless, calm, serene. It rests in the certainty that what is declared must come, for the law cannot betray itself. Faith is not anxious, for anxiety is born of mistrust. Faith is not impatient, for impatience is rooted in doubt. Faith is a steady flame that burns without flicker, illuminating the path even when appearances show darkness. This steady flame is what turns words into living power. Without it, words vanish into emptiness. With it, words shape reality with precision and speed. When faith is joined to the spoken word, supply answers instantly. Faith is like the key that unlocks the vault. The vault is always there, filled with treasure, but until the key is used it remains closed. Words are the knocking, but faith is the hand that opens the door. Many have spoken wealth and seen nothing, for they knocked without the hand of faith to open. But when faith is present, the vault swings wide, and riches pour forth in ways that astound the reasoning mind. Faith must be pure, untainted by contradiction. To declare wealth with faith in one moment and speak doubt in the next is to scatter the harvest. A divided word cannot stand. The one who commands must remain steadfast, guarding the tongue against contradiction. Faith does not waver between two opinions. Faith declares once, and then stands unmoved, unshaken, unbothered by delay or by appearances. It does not chase results, it knows results must chase it. This calm assurance is the mark of true faith, and it is this calm assurance that activates supply with speed. The measure of faith is not in volume or emotion, but in certainty. A whisper spoken in faith carries more weight than a shout spoken in fear. Faith is not loud, it is solid. It does not need to convince itself, for it already knows. Faith is like a seed that rests in the ground without struggle, knowing it must grow. It does not push or strain, it simply knows that the law of life must fulfill itself. This knowing is what moves substance into form. Faith is not blind, it is vision beyond sight. It does not ignore appearances but looks through them. It sees lack and declares supply, not because it refuses to see, but because it sees deeper. It sees the invisible abundance behind the visible void. Faith is the eyes of spirit, and with those eyes, one perceives riches where others see only poverty. With those eyes, one speaks with authority, commanding supply to appear, and it comes because it was always there, waiting for recognition. Faith is contagious. When one stands in true faith, the atmosphere shifts, others sense it, and conditions align. Opportunities are drawn to the individual whose faith is alive, for faith emits a vibration that substance cannot resist. It is as though the whole universe bends toward the one who believes. People appear with the right resources, ideas spring forth in perfect timing, doors open that were thought closed. These are not accidents. They are the visible response to invisible faith. Faith is not something to be acquired from outside. It is the natural inheritance of the soul. It is the recognition of divine order, the remembrance that the universe is governed by law, and that law responds to the command of the word clothed in belief. Every individual carries this power within, yet most bury it beneath fear, doubt, and reasoning. To awaken faith is simply to uncover what has always been present, the certainty that life is abundant, and that supply answers swiftly to the one who knows it must. Money is an obedient servant, never a master, and it waits for direction from the one who knows their authority. Too many place money on a throne, bowing before it, chasing after it, fearing its absence, clinging desperately to its presence. In truth, money is not power in itself, it is only substance in motion, energy clothed in form. Shaped and commanded by the words and beliefs of the individual, it does not lead, it follows. It does not command, it obeys. It is never the ruler but always the servant, eager to take shape in whatever pattern the consciousness provides. When a person believes money to be scarce, money obeys and withdraws. When a person believes money to be abundant, money obeys and multiplies. When a person fears that money will vanish, money responds by disappearing. When a person declares that money flows freely, money hastens to prove the truth of the decree. It has no will of its own, no purpose apart from the one assigned to it. Like a faithful servant, it takes the command and carries it out without hesitation. The tragedy of many lives is that they have handed the reins of power to money, believing it to control their destiny. They see it as a master, harsh and unpredictable, rewarding some and punishing others. This illusion binds them to lack, because what one fears becomes a master. The individual who fears money's absence gives money authority over their peace, their joy, their choices. Yet the moment one recognizes that money is only an obedient servant, the chains fall. One realizes that they have always been the master, always the one issuing commands, even if unconsciously. Words and thoughts are the instructions given to this servant. To speak of bills, debts, and difficulty is to hand money in order to restrict itself. To speak of wealth, generosity, and plenty is to instruct money to increase its flow. The servant has no choice but to follow. It does not interpret, it does not argue, it does not resist. It simply acts, reflecting precisely what is spoken and believed. Money is impartial. It does not decide who deserves it, nor does it withhold itself based on character. It moves wherever it is commanded, as fire burns for both the wise and the unwise, as rain falls on both the righteous and the unrighteous. This impartiality is law. Those who understand it do not beg for money to appear, they command it, for they know it cannot deny the voice of authority. Those who treat money as master beg, fear, and wait in endless frustration, not realizing they are speaking commands that keep their servant bound. The servant nature of money is revealed in how quickly it responds to clarity. When one makes a firm, faith-filled declaration about its presence, channels open seemingly out of nowhere. The supply may appear through expected means or through sudden opportunities, but it appears nonetheless, because the servant has heard and obeyed. When one hesitates, contradicts, or speaks doubt, money is confused, uncertain which order to follow, and the flow stalls. Clear commands produce clear results, wavering commands produce confusion. To treat money as servant is to treat it with respect but never with worship. The master does not abuse the servant, nor do they diminish it. But they never bow to it either. They use it wisely, direct it with purpose, and let it serve their higher vision. Money flows in greatest abundance to those who know it is simply a tool, a helper, a channel of expression for the greater substance of life. Those who idolize it repel it, for money will not remain where it is worshipped as master. It comes swiftly, willingly, and obediently to the one who knows their dominion. The moment a person begins to command money instead of fearing it, their life changes. Doors that seemed shut suddenly open, debts that seemed impossible dissolve, opportunities that seemed far away arrive with ease. The servant has only been waiting for clear instructions. It was never absent, never unwilling. It was merely reflecting the orders it had been given through words of fear and doubt. The instant those words are replaced with declarations of abundance, money changes its direction. Money is not attracted to strain or desperation. A servant does not respond to panic, it responds to calm direction. The frantic one pushes money away with their scattered energy, while the calm one draws it near with steady command. To stand in serenity while issuing instructions is to show mastery, and the servant responds to mastery with eagerness. Money flows where it is directed by authority, not where it is chased in fear. Understanding money as servant removes guilt from desiring it. One does not feel guilty for using a tool, nor for instructing a helper to fulfill a task. Money is no different. It exists to serve, to flow, to enable expression. To reject it is to reject the service it can provide. To embrace it as servant is to allow it to take its rightful place as obedient supply. In this recognition, money begins to move freely, without resistance, for it is no longer burdened with false power. The laws of life demand that money serve the one who commands with faith. It cannot resist, for it is bound to obey. The servant does not ask when or how, it simply acts. If commanded to appear within hours, it hastens. If commanded to multiply, it expands. If commanded to flow endlessly, it opens streams that never run dry. The authority lies not in the servant, but in the one issuing the command. To understand this is to stand in dominion over circumstances that once seemed overwhelming. Money reflects the consciousness of its master. In the hands of one who knows abundance, it multiplies. In the hands of one who fears lack, it diminishes. In the hands of one who loves wisely, it blesses. In the hands of one who clings desperately, it slips away. Always it obeys, never it resists. It has no choice. For it is not alive in itself, but animated only by the power of the spoken word and the belief behind it. The servant nature of money means it is never the goal but the vehicle. It is never the source but the channel. It is never the master but the obedient assistant. When this truth is fully accepted, one no longer wastes time fearing its loss or straining for its gain. They stand in authority, they issue commands, and they watch the servant carry them out with precision. This is the law of supply, unchanging, unfailing, and immediate when understood. Command over circumstance is the recognition that life itself is not meant to dictate terms to you, but to respond to the authority of your word. Circumstances are appearances, shifting shadows, temporary forms that mirror the inner state of belief. They are not fixed, they are not final. They are not masters. They are clay in the hands of consciousness, ready to be reshaped at the moment a firm command is given. The individual who understands this truth no longer trembles at outer conditions, for they know those conditions are only the outpicturing of yesterday's commands. And today's word has the power to sweep them away and create a new order. The mistake many make is bowing to circumstances as though they hold dominion. They look at empty purses, at unpaid bills, at doors closed to opportunity, and they surrender, believing that what is seen is final. But circumstances are nothing more than obedient reflections of thought and speech. To bow before them is to hand away authority, to allow the shadow to control the substance. When one rises in the awareness of their dominion, they cease to ask permission of circumstances. They issue commands, and circumstances rearrange themselves to obey. The spoken word, clothed with faith, is law over condition. Appearances may scream lack, Yet one command of abundance spoken with certainty forces the law to act. Appearances may whisper defeat. Yet one command of victory compels circumstances to align. It is not the outer that dictates the inner, it is the inner word that governs the outer. Those who understand this secret walk in calm assurance, for they know they need not wrestle with appearances. They simply speak, and appearances bend. Circumstances are malleable. They are like water taking the shape of whatever vessel consciousness provides. If the vessel is one of fear, circumstances take the form of obstacles, debts, and delay. If the vessel is one of faith, circumstances take the form of opportunity, provision, and speed. The law is impartial, reflecting whatever command it receives, never questioning, never resisting. This is why command must be firm and unwavering. To issue a weak command is to send a servant without direction. To issue a strong command is to send it forth with precision, and the universe hastens to obey. Command is not loudness or force of personality. It is not the noise of desperation. True command is quiet authority, calm certainty, the still voice that knows it cannot be denied. To speak in fear is to plead, but to speak in authority is to declare. Declarations are the language of command, and when spoken in faith they carry the weight of law. The individual who declares does not wait to see if it will be obeyed. They know it already is. They act as master, and the law of life rushes to fulfill their decree. Every circumstance carries within it the seed of transformation, waiting for command. The empty purse waits for the command of fullness. The closed door waits for the command of opening. The stagnant situation waits for the command of movement. Nothing remains fixed unless the master of the word leaves it unchallenged. To accept conditions as they are is to issue a silent command that they remain. To speak a new condition is to call forth the hidden abundance already present, waiting to take form at the sound of the word. Circumstances test not to break, but to reveal the level of authority exercised. Those who falter at appearances show that they have placed faith in the shadow rather than the substance. Those who stand firm and speak the word in the face of contradiction reveal mastery. The more impossible the circumstance seems, the more glorious the demonstration of command when it yields. Circumstances exist to be commanded, and the one who knows this never fears delay, obstacle, or lack. They see each condition as pliable material, ready to be reshaped by their decree. Command over circumstance is not an act of aggression but of alignment. The command does not come from human will alone, but from union with divine law. When the individual speaks in alignment with truth, their word carries infinite backing. They are not forcing life to obey. They are declaring what life already is in its essence. Supply is already present, health is already complete, success is already established. The command simply clears away the illusion and allows the reality to appear. The outer world mirrors the inner command with absolute faithfulness. If chaos is within, chaos appears without. If order is within, order manifests without. If wealth is affirmed within, wealth takes form without. The law is mechanical in its accuracy, never failing, never making exception. To change circumstances, one need only change the command. The moment a new decree is spoken with faith, the invisible begins to rearrange, and the visible must follow. It cannot resist, for it has no power of its own apart from the consciousness directing it. Those who practice command find that circumstances shift with astonishing speed. What seemed solid and immovable gives way overnight. What seemed delayed suddenly accelerates. What seemed blocked opens in unexpected ways. The universe is plastic to the word of authority, and it responds with swiftness to the voice that knows it is master. The world may call these changes miracles, but in truth they are the natural obedience of substance to command. Command over circumstance liberates the individual from fear. They no longer tremble at bills, obstacles, or setbacks. They no longer ask what will happen if conditions worsen. They no longer waste energy trying to control every detail in the outer. They rest in the certainty that command governs all. They issue the word, and they know the word is law. They do not need to chase after circumstances, for circumstances are already chasing to fulfill their decree. The power to command is not reserved for a few, it is the natural authority of every soul. Yet most live as though powerless, speaking carelessly, pleading rather than declaring, yielding to appearances rather than commanding them. The moment they recognize their dominion, their words gain weight, and circumstances yield like clay in the potter's hand. The individual who commands does not ask whether life will provide, they know it must. They do not hope for change, they declare it. They do not wait for permission, they exercise authority. Command is the true language of mastery. It is not arrogant, it is not forceful, it is not born of pride. It is born of certainty in the law of life, certainty that substance obeys the spoken word, certainty that appearances are only shadows. To command over circumstance is to step into one's rightful place as master of the visible through union with the invisible. It is to take hold of the authority always present but seldom used. Alignment, not struggle, is the secret of manifestation. For life does not yield its treasures to force or frantic effort, but to harmony with divine law. The universe is not moved by exhaustion, nor by sweat, nor by strain. It is moved by the clear, calm words spoken in alignment with truth. Struggle is the language of fear, alignment is the language of mastery. When one struggles, they confess through action that supply is distant, difficult, or unwilling. When one aligns, they recognize that supply is already present, already flowing, already waiting for recognition. Struggle pushes abundance away, alignment draws it near. The idea that money or success must be wrung from the universe through toil is an illusion born of ignorance. Substance does not respond to pressure, it responds to clarity. The farmer does not strain to force a seed to grow, he aligns with the law of growth by placing the seed in the soil, watering it, and trusting the process. So too does the individual align with the law of supply. They speak the word, they stand in faith, and they allow the law to unfold. To strain is to disturb the soil, to uproot the seed, to block the natural process. To align is to rest in the certainty that the law cannot fail. Alignment begins with the recognition that there is no separation between the individual and supply. Struggle is born of the belief that supply is far away, withheld, or difficult to reach. Alignment knows that supply is immediate, infinite, and inseparable from the self. To say, I must fight for money, is to declare distance and difficulty. To say, I am one with endless supply, is to declare alignment, and alignment manifests swiftly. Struggle delays by affirming lack. Alignment hastens by affirming abundance. Alignment is not passivity but precise action. The aligned individual does not sit idly, waiting without direction. They listen inwardly, they receive intuitive guidance, and they act in harmony with that guidance. Their actions are efficient. Their steps are sure, because they are carried by the current of divine law. The struggler acts blindly, hoping that frantic motion will produce results. The aligned one acts calmly, knowing that each movement is divinely directed. The struggler wastes energy, the aligned one multiplies results. In alignment, time compresses. What others accomplish through years of struggle can be accomplished in hours by one who is aligned. This is not because they are more deserving, but because they have ceased to oppose the law with doubt, fear, and contradiction. They have placed themselves in the flow of substance, and substance rushes to manifest. The struggler stands against the current, exhausting themselves in resistance. The aligned one moves with the current, carried swiftly to manifestation. Alignment requires inner order. To speak abundance while inwardly holding fear is misalignment. To declare prosperity while secretly doubting is misalignment. Words and thoughts must be in harmony for the command to carry power. When thought affirms lack and speech declares wealth, the signals conflict, and the universe reflects confusion. But when thought, speech, and feeling are united in faith, the command is perfect, and manifestation follows with precision. Alignment is not partial agreement, but complete harmony between the inner and the outer word. The atmosphere of alignment is peace. The aligned one does not wrestle with appearances, does not chase after results, does not argue with circumstance. They stand still in the knowing that the law is already at work. Peace itself is a magnet for supply, for peace proves trust, and trust activates the law. Struggle emanates fear, and fear scatters supply. Peace emanates certainty, and certainty draws abundance like iron to a magnet. The calm master of words manifests more in moments of alignment than the struggler does in years of labor. Alignment is a surrender not to weakness, but to law. To surrender struggle is not to abandon effort, but to abandon resistance. The aligned one does not resist appearances with anxiety, they overrule them with command. They do not resist delay with fear, they shorten it with faith. They do not resist lack with panic, they dissolve it with declaration. Resistance feeds the appearance, alignment dissolves it. By aligning with divine law, one calls forth substance to act immediately, because the law is never inactive, never unwilling, never distant. The greatest works of manifestation have never been born of struggle but of alignment. Wealth flows to the one who aligns inwardly before acting outwardly. Opportunities appear to the one who listens inwardly before moving outwardly. Success crowns the one who speaks in harmony with law rather than fighting against shadows. Struggle belongs to the one who believes life is an enemy to be conquered. Alignment belongs to the one who knows life is a servant to be directed. The struggler spends their strength in battle, the aligned one spends their word in command. To align with abundance is to see it as natural, inevitable, and immediate. The struggler sees wealth as extraordinary, rare, or unfairly distributed. The aligned one sees wealth as law, as the natural state of the universe, as the rightful inheritance of every soul. In this recognition, money flows easily, because it is no longer resisted by disbelief. To see abundance as natural is to invite it, to see it as unnatural is to reject it. Alignment is agreement with the truth that supply is endless. Struggle is argument against that truth, and every argument delays manifestation. Alignment is also gratitude, for gratitude proves recognition of abundance. The struggler complains, and complaint commands lack to persist. The aligned one gives thanks even before supply appears, knowing that their word is already law in the unseen. Gratitude in advance is alignment, and it multiplies supply by affirming its certainty. Gratitude after manifestation is acknowledgement, but gratitude before manifestation is command. The one who thanks in advance aligns with the law, and the law rushes to fulfill their thanksgiving. The struggle mentality asks, what if it does not come? The aligned mentality says, it is already here. Struggle begs, pleads, and bargains, as though supply must be convinced. Alignment speaks with authority, as though supply cannot resist. Struggle is rooted in fear of lack. Alignment is rooted in recognition of fullness. Struggle sees absence and fights to fill it. Alignment sees presence and declares it into form. This difference in perspective determines the speed of manifestation. The rhythm of alignment is effortless flow. It is like a river carrying the boat without strain. The struggler rows furiously against the current, exhausting themselves with little progress. The aligned one releases the oars, sets the direction with command, and lets the current carry them. The river does not resist. It was always meant to carry. The universe does not resist. It was always meant to provide. Struggle is an attempt to do with human force what the law of life accomplishes with ease. Alignment allows the law to act, and the results appear with astonishing speed.